welcome back to part 2 of our 4-part video series on sexual assault policy analysis at your school. Today we're going to take a look at risk reduction and primary prevention programming as part of an overall comprehensive prevention program that should be going on at your school. Today we're going to look at what's already happening, again, and what could be happening, some ideas that you could push for in a movement to improve things at your school. We're going to start with risk reduction, which has really deep roots in the feminist anti-violence movement. But typically when we see risk reduction programming on campus, it's geared towards potential victims of sexual violence. And it can look like self-defense classes or a safe ride, meaning a shuttle that moves students from one part of campus to another. It can also look like blue lights on campus or emergency phones. It can look like a 24-hour emergency call system for security to come and interrupt a dangerous situation. What the real message, though, is that victims are responsible for lowering their own risk of being sexually assaulted while a student at your school. And while this programming is essential, it's part of a comprehensive prevention programming. When it's the only thing going on at your school, it sends a message that the school is not responsible necessarily, and the individuals who are actually perpetrating sexual violence are not responsible for the acts that they're committing. That the person who was walking alone late at night, that decided to go to that party, that brought home that person, is responsible for the thing that they've experienced. And that's a message that SAFER critiques strongly. On the flip side, we're starting to see an emergence of primary prevention programming. And that's an idea that has really come out in the last decade or so of the anti-violence movement. And it's an idea that programs can focus actually on potential perpetrators of sexual violence, which, as we talked about in the first video, can be anybody. But it's about really changing norms and behaviors and educating on the roots of sexual violence as opposed to the fact that it just happens. In primary prevention, we're really looking at two things at the same time. We're looking at programs that look at potential perpetrators of sexual violence and also bystanders or witnesses of violence and what they can do to intervene. Let's talk about potential perpetrators first, which is, as we covered in the first video, anyone. And when we look at potential perpetrators, we're really looking at changing behaviors and norms and focusing on consent and listening and respect. We're looking for programs that really target young men. Despite the fact that anyone can be a perpetrator, we know the vast majority of sexual violence is perpetrated by men. So organizations like Men Can Stop Rape have clubs, like the Most Club on college campuses, that really focus on men shifting the conversation for other men. That's a form of primary prevention that's really powerful. Some examples of bystander intervention are programs that train students, really provide them with skills for how to identify risky situations where one person is vulnerable to some kind of attack and another person is taking advantage of someone who is vulnerable. And that can be drunk, alone, what have you. And really using coercion and power tactics to get that person to a place where they can be sexually assaulted. Bystanders have a lot of power. As we know, students will see this stuff on the ground before administrators, faculty, or staff ever get wind of it. And so it's really important that students on the ground are also trained and empowered to do something if they do identify a situation that may be worthy of an intervention, and being able to keep themselves safe at the same time while doing that. Some examples of bystander intervention programs that are working, that are evidence-based and are also founded on really intense research are programs like the Green Dot program, which is out of the University of Kentucky, Bringing in the Bystander, which comes out of the University of New Hampshire, and Mentors in Violence Prevention, or MVP. Take a look at what your campus is already doing, either on the risk reduction side and on the primary prevention side. And if you find holes, come up with suggestions for what your school could be doing instead. Some of these programs are a little bit expensive, but it could be as simple as a consent workshop that your organization throws together to talk about really the roots of sexual violence and how we can all, every day, take a stand and build up a safer campus together. Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully we'll see you for part 3 of this video series on policy analysis. In the meantime, you can get your submission started to the Campus Accountability Project at our website, safercampus.org, and learn more about primary prevention programming at your school, along with the other risk reduction programming already happening on the ground.